Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be installing a Hang Onn full motion spring assisted TV wall mount, 24 inch to 65 inch. So I recently did a video where I hung my TV right here. So the TV that I removed had a broken coax connector on the back of it, and it's still good and I can still stream on it. So my wife wanted to move it to the back porch, and so we figured we would hang it right here. So I got this Hang Onn wall mount from Walmart. I think it was in like the $65 range. And the reason why I wanted to get this one is because we have a 51-inch TV, and we want to make sure that we can swing it 90 degrees. And this says it will swing 90 degrees. So in our case, we need to swing this 90 degrees so that we can see the TV on the rest of the porch. So I have the instructions here. Look pretty thorough. Something I just noticed is that you can fully extend out the TV from the wall 22.6 inches. So at the halfway point right there in the middle of the insignia, so it looks like this is 23.5 inches. So that means that we won't be able to pivot. So there you'll pivot on that right there. So this won't be able to go full 90 degrees, but it will be good enough. I mean, it'll probably be like 87 degrees. It won't be able to turn that all the way. It's going to bump the wall before it hits 90 degrees. So just something to keep in mind, depending on how wide your TV is. You want to take that in consideration. I want to show you the parts real quick. So there's as you see the instructions, there's a template. That's real helpful because you can use that to level off, mark your holes, and move pretty quickly on getting the mount going. And there's the arm that you'll extend out, the back plate for the TV, and then the extenders that'll extend off the back plate for mounting the various sizes of TVs. So I'm going to go with the instructions and start out with the back plate and get this going first, and I'll walk you through that. This right here is the TV bracket. That's what it's officially called. I've been calling the back plate. So the TV bracket's going to kind of sit here in the center of your back of your TV, and then you have these extension arms that will extend up to your mounting holes. So I got this laid out how it's all going to work. So as you can see here, there's a hole, and then there's notches here. So there's let me see if I can, yeah, this notch right here will line up with these here. So if like your TV requires you to do this, you can line up the notch that way, and vice versa. So in my case, I got to get these extended out like that. So you want to be sure that you get these connected correctly. So this right here is the TV side of the TV bracket. Then you're going to take the extension arm, and you want to make sure again that that notch is sitting in there. So you can't put it this way because the notch won't be sitting in there. And then you're going to take the screws. So as you can see, there is a squared kind of ridge there just below the head. That's important because so the hole here is squared, as you can see right there, and then the hole on the other side is round. So the reason that's important is that you want that squared notch to sit in that square hole, and that way it won't move around. It makes it easier to put the nut on. So just make sure it's laid out this way, because I've actually already done it wrong. I had the extension arms on the wrong side. But the key thing is so this is the side of the TV bracket touching the TV. So I'm going to go ahead and slap this in here and take a nut here and put it on there. And if you want to use your own wrench instead of what came with the kit, you can use a 10mm. Okay, so that is lining up perfectly. I got my selection of bolts for mounting this TV bracket to the TV, so I got to figure out which one will work. So I want to go through and do that. Obviously, you're not going to use all of these for your install. They just have multiple selections because they're dealing with lots of different TVs. So in my case, the L4 seemed to work real nicely, but it's too long, so they do have spacers here. So I'm going to throw on a spacer for each of these to make it work. There's enough spacers to where you can use more than one, but I think all I need is one. I also have a thicker spacer here as well, so but I'm going to go with a thinner one, and I'm just going to use one, and that should be good to go. Okay, so I got it mounted, and the benefit of go ahead and mounting your TV bracket is that you'll know that this will actually work for your TV. So if the TV bracket fits, then that means you can do the rest of this. Okay, so if I was to go ahead and drill holes in my walls to mount that extension arm, then that would be an issue if I figured out the TV bracket doesn't work. So just I would advise going with the instructions to get the TV bracket installed first. Okay, so next up I'm measuring the height of the TV. That'll help me to figure out where I'm placing it on the wall. So this looks like it's 28 3/4 inches. As you can see, I've marked the top and bottom, placed it, and we just kind of stepped back to see if this was a good spot for the TV. This is a good height, just eyeballed it. And then I marked the midpoint. So this is 61 inches wide. So I'll mark, so like right here is halfway point on the wall. So actually that's like right in here is the center for both of those. Okay, so in order to figure out placement, what I did is I went ahead and put the arm on here because I need to figure out where this wall mount here sits in relationship to the bottom of the TV. So I took the stand off the TV so it's touching the ground. I put the arm on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure from the bottom of this to the ground because the TV is sitting flush on the ground. So that's because I measured this as 28 3/4 inches. So I'll figure where I want that on the wall, and then from the bottom I'll measure 3 1/4 up from the bottom of the TV where I mark it on the wall. So I'll show you that. So I measured 3 1/4 inches up, and also if I figured out my center location again, and so went ahead and taped down the template. The reason why I taped it down like that is because I want to be able to take the level and just put it at the top of the template, just to ensure that it's sitting level. Once you have the template good and level, just tape it down real good, and that way you'll get your holes in position where they need to be at, and just mark them up with the pencil so you can move on to drilling your holes. Okay, so now that I got the template in place and the holes marked up, now I can look at what's going to be my options for mounting this TV mount. And so it comes with, so you got some lag screws in here, and so that works out really well. If you have a stud finder, you find a stud and it holds it up real well. But if you're dealing with a hollow wall, it has some anchors that you can work with. There should be 4 anchors, but if you're like me and you have beagles, they shoot up one of them. But the good news is I don't need these because I'm dealing with concrete, or center block wall. And so what I'm going to do is this doesn't come with it, but I've got some Tapcon screws here, and then just I don't know if these are sharp or not, but I got several masonry bits. These are 3/16 masonry bits for this particular screw. And so I'm going to drill the holes using the template, and then I'm going to get this mounted using the Tapcon screws. So I went ahead and did 5 holes. Wouldn't hurt to have an extra screw in there to hold this up. If you're using Tapcons, a wrench does better than a flathead screwdriver just because there's a lot of resistance between the screw and the concrete. One thing about Tapcons is you have to be careful about tightening them too much because you can easily strip them out to where they don't have any grip anymore. I just kind of want to get it a little tight there and then let off. One more to go and I'll be done with this. Oh, one other thing to point out is so it does have a leveler right here. Looks pretty good. I probably could have tapped it over a little bit more. Okay, so before I get this hung, I did notice I was looking at the TV bracket here, and it just didn't look like it was parallel with the top of the TV. It's actually a little off. So I leveled up the TV here. So if you look here, I got a level. And then when you sit the level on the TV bracket, because it's got an edge there, I can set that on there. As you can see, it's really off. So that means when I set it up and mount it, it's going to sit funny. So what I'm going to do is I got that wrench. I'm just going to loosen these up and try to make some adjustments. So I'll see if I can work that and get that level, get it tight. So, okay, so I got the TV bracket all loosened up. So what I'm going to do is just see if I can maneuver it here. Actually, that was pretty easy. So we'll just kind of maneuver it in place. So I'll use both hands, make sure that's secure, and then I'll get it tightened back up. So yeah, it's just something to watch out for so that you can ensure that your TV's nice and level when you hang it. Okay, to mount this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tab here and I'm going to fit it over this right here. Okay, so I didn't have the tensioner set, so the arm did go down. So it was kind of something that I learned through this process, is that this arm can go up and down. So that's a pretty cool thing. I got that notch over there, but now I want to go and I'm going to add some screws right here to lock this in place. Okay, so there's 2 screws labeled R, and that's what you throw back here. So here they are right here, getting them nice and tight. My first attempt at positioning the TV on here failed because so there's actually a warning sheet about making sure your tension is tight. But the thing is that when I did try to tension it, so if you go clockwise, it's like the bolt here is spinning. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a wrench to try to tighten this more, because if this isn't tight, this just drops down when you put the TV on it. I did make sure, so my TV, I did weigh it, we're under 66 pounds. I think it's like 50 something pounds. So that's another thing, is that its capacity is, look like, if I remember correctly, the instructions said 66 pounds. So that's something to be aware of, but just make sure this is nice and tight so this won't drop on you. Okay, so I got this really good and tight using a wrench and then holding this handle while I was tightening the bolt down here. So I'll give that a try now, put the TV back on. One other thing is that, so back here where I had my Tapcons, apparently didn't have enough. There was a little bit of wiggle room in there. This actually, with all the weight and this not being tensioned correctly, it kind of slipped a little bit and wasn't level. I went ahead and threw additional Tapcons in here, so it should be good and tight now. Hopefully that'll hold as well. Okay, I'm going ahead and also tightening up this before I throw the TV on, because this plate will slip in down like that. So I'm going to do the bolts on both sides and get them good and tight. So I put the TV on there a second time and I couldn't get it to work. So I just can't figure this out. I went by the instructions and pulled this up and tried to twist it around that way. I tried my own thing and tried to tighten this bolt here to make it real tight. And I just can't get this to work. It's still going down. So I don't need to be able to lower this up and down. Hopefully you're able to figure it out. I'm just going to use some sheet metal screws. And I'm going to put that in there because these are 2 different parts. So if I lock those 2 in together, one here, one there, and on the same thing on the other side, it'll lock this in place and it ain't going nowhere. I'm not trying to lower this up and down. Okay, so 4 sheet metal screws later. Now, if you see here, it looks like I hit the hydraulic pump or cylinder, whatever it is inside there. So made a little sliding sound. But yeah, there's the other 2 right there. So we'll see if this makes a difference. Okay, with that modification, looks like it's working now. The TV's on there. So I'm going to get just everything kind of finalized. Oh, one thing I want to show you. It does come with the cover for your mount here. So as you can see, it's not 90 degrees, but we can get a pretty good view from the rest of the porch. So this is going to work out really well. Okay, so there we have it. So one thing that I quickly figured out. So right now the TV is probably about 6 inches away from the wall. And if I were to push this up against the wall, it's easy for it to kind of lose its level, but it's easily adjustable by just kind of moving it with your hand. When you push this up against the wall, when it folds in, the TV is no longer centered on that wall mount. It kind of puts it off to the left. So you want to factor that in. So right now it's not centered on the wall, and that's kind of important for me. Okay, so it's bothering me that this TV is not centered, and the fact that I got to pull it away from the wall in order to get it centered, and that kind of takes up porch space to keep it pulled out some. So I actually am going to move it over. In order to do that, I'm going to take the level here and I'm going to mark where the TV is currently at now. So the mount is centered, so I just went ahead and extended that line down, so there's a center line. The width of the TV is 47 and 9/16. So I got the halfway point marked out on my tape measure here. And so what I'm gonna do is put that on the center point. And this is where the TV should sit if it were centered, because I have it on the center line. So I'll mark that. So now that I have this line, I use my level so I can mark a line. So there's a line where it sits right now, where the TV is off-centered. So now that I got these two lines, I'll measure the distance between them. And now I can just take the TV down. And so where I mounted the mount before, I'll just measure over. This looks like maybe 2.5 inches. I'll measure over like 2.5 inches. And that'll put the mount in a spot to where once the TV's mounted, it'll have the TV positioned to where the TV will sit centered. So the distance actually is 2.25 inches. So that's something to think about. If you are using this wall mount, you'll want to make sure that you don't put the wall mount centered on that wall. You'll actually want to find the center point and then measure over 2.25 inches. I got my 2.25 inches marked, and now I'm just going to take my wall mount here and I got the leveler, so I'll put it on that line that I marked and get the holes marked and just go ahead and get this mounted and get the TV back on. So I just moved it over to get it on center, but I just realized something. There's an easier way to do this, and so this is what the TV mounts on, so you can just make sure that this is centered. And I did a test, and so there's the center mark there, and there's where the TV will mount. So the TV should be centered now, but just something to think about when you're installing it. Just go ahead and put this on the wall and then see where this sits at, and then you'll know how to center it. So that worked to get this centered. Just find your center point in the wall and then go over 2.25 inches. As you can see, I got it plugged in. The wiring's not going to look pretty at this point. That'll come later down the road.